Hey guys, welcome to Anthony and Will Do Disney. Today we're going to be talking about Disney cruises and a handful of things that you need to consider when you're trying to plan your very first Disney cruise. Stay tuned. So a Disney cruise is a very different animal from Disney World. There's not a lot of planning that really needs to go into it beforehand, like fast passes, dining reservations, because all the activities and stuff are pre-planned for you. So the things you do need to consider are timing and type. So we're going to go through 5 things that we need to discuss and talk about before you plan your first Disney cruise. The first one's the date. The date is probably the most important thing you're going to have to think about. You have to take into account the different times of year that you have the ability to go on vacation, and then start thinking about the times of year that Disney has things available. So let's pretend that you want to go during spring break in April. The cruises that you're looking at might not necessarily have dates that exactly coincide. It's not as flexible as a Disney World vacation. There are a ton of options, but you need to take into account when you can go versus the things you want to go see and the places you want to go. Number 2, you have to look at the departure port. Now the departure port could play into a bunch of different things. We have New York, we have Port Canaveral, Miami, Galveston, Texas, out in California, we have Alaska, and then we actually have European as well. So when you're trying to plan your vacation, you have to take into account traveling, you have to take into account simplicity to the port, you also have to take into account time. So if you're planning to go, let's say in April again, you need to take into account that you need to show up the night before and traveling to that individual port and how you're going to get there. This impacts cost, this impacts time off, this impacts a lot of different things. So after you figure out that date, really looking where you want to sail out of is probably your next filter. Third, we're going to look at itinerary. When you're looking at your itinerary, you have to take into account what places you want to go. Some popular examples are Nassau, Disney's Castaway Cay. You also have places like the Eastern Caribbean. You can go out to Cozumel, St. Thomas, and looking at the Disney cruise that actually has all those places you want to go see. The itinerary is actually also going to impact individual parties that are on board. So some ships, as example, the Magic, will have things like Star Wars Day at Sea, Marvel Day at Sea, you'll also have Christmas time, you'll have different Halloween parties. And me personally, I consider that part of the itinerary because it impacts activities on board, seasons, decoration, and those are things you need to think about as well. Number 4 is the ship itself. Now Disney currently has 4 ships with 3 more in the making. The first 2 and the older of the 4 ships are the Wonder and the Magic. Typically you're going to find the Magic goes out of New York as well as Miami, sometimes out of Port Canaveral. The Wonder itself you're going to find goes out of Port Canaveral, Miami, Galveston, as well as it's the one that manages the Alaskan cruises as well as California. And these are Disney's 2 smallest ships. So you're gonna have less people, but it's also gonna be slightly smaller. Now me personally being on the Magic, I loved the size. I liked how close everything was, how relevant it was to the things I wanted to go see. I do have my first cruise coming up on the Fantasy over in November, so we'll take a look at the comparison then. The other 2 that you have are the Disney Fantasy and the Disney Dream. Both of them primarily go out of Port Canaveral, the Disney Dream being shorter itineraries, 3, 4, 5 nights, and the Fantasy being the Eastern Caribbean, the Western Caribbean, as well as the longer cruises, so those 7-night trips. It depends on the style of vacation that you want to do, the different places you want to go, and these are all impacted by the ship. And for those of you that have been on Disney cruises before, it's not a bad idea to take a look at the activities on the ship, the shows, the restaurants, because if you've been on a couple different ships, these can lead to something new that you can see while you're on vacation. Lastly is the stateroom type. Disney has a couple different types of staterooms that you can have on board, from inside staterooms with no windows that are kind of center in the ship, to the ocean view, which have a porthole or 2 smaller portholes as opposed to a larger one that you can actually have. Verandas, which have a small balcony. Family verandas, which are slightly larger, that can sleep up to 5 people with a veranda as well. All the way up to concierge, which has a lot of included things. This is going to be another factor. When you're looking at, let's say, example as inside stateroom to a concierge level, the price is going to be a massive price difference. So you need to take into account the benefits that you're going to get out of it. Me personally, I do like the veranda style. The veranda style is a nice size. It gives you a little more space having the veranda. Plus, I also like that airflow that you get. It gives you a nice place to sit. But if you're looking at a place where you don't want to have much motion sickness, if you're worried about those types of things, If you're looking at something that's a little darker, an inside stateroom's a great option, especially on the Fantasy and the Dream, because they do have the magic portholes that display the outside of the ship, with some fun Disney Imagineering that gets lost in there. And that's what we have for today. 5 things you need to think about before planning your Disney cruise. Now, these are all things you want to look into as you're planning it, as you're going through the website, and the questions you need to ask yourself. Thanks for all you do. Reach down and hit subscribe, as well as hit that bell icon so you get notifications for your next trip. Reach out if you have any questions, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks.